In 2010, the Roosevelt dime had already been a fixture of American coinage for more than 6 decades. Its obverse still bore the resolute profile of Franklin D. Roosevelt, designed by John R. Cynic in the aftermath of the president's death in 1945, and its reverse carried the torch, olive branch, and oak branch, symbols of liberty, peace, and strength. That year, the United States Mint produced dimes at its Philadelphia and Denver facilities, meeting the continuing demand for everyday currency in a nation still recovering from the turbulence of the late 2000s financial crisis. The minting process, driven by advanced technology and precise quality control, was designed to eliminate the kinds of mistakes that earlier decades had occasionally allowed into circulation. Yet, even in such a refined system, imperfection found its way through, quietly embedding itself in a coin meant to be ordinary. The presses at the mints in 2010 were faster and more automated than ever, producing millions of coins each day. Die preparation had become a meticulous craft aided by computer-guided machinery, but the complexity of the process meant that a single oversight or anomaly could ripple through hundreds of coins before being caught. Somewhere in that year's production run, something happened, a momentary lapse in alignment, a misfeed of planchets, or perhaps a flaw during the hubbing of the die. The result was a batch of Roosevelt dimes that, while they passed inspection at the time, carried a distinct and intriguing error that would later ignite the curiosity of the numismatic community. Years passed before one particular collector encountered the first hint of the anomaly. Their search began not in the bustling halls of a coin show, but in the quiet setting of their own home, sorting through a jar of change accumulated over months. It was a familiar ritual, one that often yielded nothing more than a few state quarters or worn wheat cents. The 2010 dime at first seemed unremarkable. Its luster had dulled slightly from circulation, and it bore the small P mint mark of Philadelphia. But something about it made the collector pause. The rim seemed uneven in certain spots, almost as if the strike had been off-center. Turning the coin under light revealed an unusual doubling in the date and in the letters of liberty, faint but undeniable to trained eyes. The collector's heart rate quickened. Doubling on modern coins was not unheard of, but on a 2010 Roosevelt dime, it was far from common. They retrieved a magnifier and leaned closer, tracing the strange separation of lines in the numerals, the slight shadowing in God We Trust, and the curious weakness in part of the torch on the reverse. The coin seemed to tell two stories at once, one of standard minting and another of a brief, rare slip in precision. Was it a double die, a misaligned die strike, or something more obscure, like a partial collar error combined with die deterioration? The longer they studied it, the more the possibilities unfolded. Rather than rushing to an answer, the collector began an investigation. They compared it against known varieties listed in error coin references and online databases, searching for a perfect match. Some examples were close. Other double dies from the era existed, but the specific combination of traits on this coin was elusive. The doubling was sharper in certain areas, the rim's distortion more pronounced, and the reverse weakness in the torch unlike anything they had seen cataloged. The realization began to sink in. This could be a new, undocumented variety, or at the very least, one of a small handful that had slipped into circulation without recognition. The first offers to purchase the dime were modest. A fellow collector, intrigued but skeptical, proposed a trade involving a few mid-range silver coins. Dealers who saw it in person were more cautious, some dismissing it as machine doubling, others admitting that it warranted further study. The coin's fate seemed balanced on a knife's edge between obscurity and notoriety. For the owner, parting with it too soon felt like giving away a mystery before its secrets had been fully uncovered. Time worked in the dime's favor. As more collectors began hearing whispers about the 2010 Roosevelt dime error, interest grew. Online forums lit up with grainy photos of possible matches, and each confirmed specimen added weight to the coin's legitimacy as a genuine mint error. Early sales of verified examples began to push into the hundreds of dollars, then beyond, as demand outpaced the tiny known supply. It was no longer just a curiosity. It was becoming a symbol of how even modern minting, with all its precision, could still yield treasures for those who looked closely. The coin's physical traits became the subject of study among error specialists. The doubling on the obverse, most visible in the dates 2 and 0, was clean enough to suggest it happened during the die's creation rather than from post-strike movement. The rim's unevenness hinted at a slight misalignment of the die during striking, causing the metal to flow irregularly into the collar. And that weakness in the reverse torch? Some speculated it was the result of an incomplete strike on that side, perhaps caused by subtle die tilt. The combination of these factors meant that each example found was almost like a fingerprint, similar enough to link them, but with small variances hinting at the chaotic moment of their creation. Then came an unexpected twist. In examining auction records and private sales, a researcher discovered that nearly all of the most pristine examples traced back to coins distributed in the northeastern United States, specifically through a handful of banks that received direct shipments from the Philadelphia Mint in early 2010. This geographic concentration suggested that the faulty die had been used for a short production run before being replaced, its output funneled into a limited distribution area. For collectors, this revelation was electrifying. It meant that the odds of finding another example in random change were even slimmer than imagined, and that those still in circulation might be concentrated in a region already heavily picked over. The market responded accordingly. What had once been a coin traded for under $200 was now seeing prices soar well past $1,000 for high-grade, certified examples. Some speculators bought them up, holding them in hopes of future appreciation, while dedicated numismatists valued them for their place in the evolving history of modern mint errors. And yet, the full population of these coins remained a mystery. Were there dozens, hundreds, or perhaps only a small handful left to be found? For the original collector, the coin had become more than just a lucky find. It was a reminder of the thrill that had drawn them to the hobby in the first place. The possibility that something extraordinary could hide in plain sight, waiting for patient eyes to recognize it. They watched as their once overlooked dime became a talking point at coin shows and in collector publications, its story still unfolding with each new discovery and each fresh debate over its classification. The 2010 Roosevelt dime error stood as a testament to the fact that rarity is not always born of age. Sometimes it is born in the blink of an eye, in the fraction of a second when machinery falters, when human oversight lets an anomaly pass, and when a single coin carries forward the silent record of that moment. Its luster may fade, its surfaces may bear the marks of circulation, but its story, etched in doubled numerals, uneven rims, and subtle weaknesses, remains. And for those who hold one, it is more than a piece of change. It is a fragment of minting history, a quiet rebellion against perfection, and a reminder that even in the most modern of times, the unexpected still slips through. In 2015, the Roosevelt dime continued its quiet service in American commerce, a small but constant presence in pockets, cash drawers, and coin rolls across the country. Its design had not changed in decades. The dignified profile of Franklin D. Roosevelt on the obverse, the torch flanked by olive and oak branches on the reverse. The P mint mark of Philadelphia denoted where it had been struck, one of hundreds of millions produced that year. The machinery was modern, the quality control strict, and the production lines were designed to eliminate error. Yet, hidden among this vast sea of uniformity, an imperfection slipped through, born not of carelessness but of the unpredictable nature of mass production. It was the kind of mistake that would go unnoticed by almost everyone. At first, the Philadelphia Mint in 2015 was a place of relentless precision. Coin blanks, called planchets, were fed into presses with clockwork regularity, each die striking its impression in a fraction of a second. The dies themselves were the product of multiple stages of preparation, from hubbing to hardening, each step intended to create an exact replica of the official design. But when one of these dies carried even the slightest flaw, the results could be striking, sometimes literally. Whether from a misalignment during hubbing, an error in the mint mark placement, or an unnoticed die crack, the result could be a coin that told a different story than its countless siblings that it was years later when a collector, seasoned but still driven by the thrill of the hunt, encountered the first clue. Their search that day wasn't in a dealer's showcase or an auction hall. It was in a bank bag of customer-wrapped coin rolls, the kind most people handle without a second glance. The first pass through the rolls yielded little. Standard coins, some lightly worn, some fresh from circulation. But then, almost as if it had been waiting for the right set of eyes, a 2015 dime caught the light in a way that demanded a second look. First, the collector couldn't identify what felt wrong. The coin had its expected mint mark, its familiar design, yet something about the details seemed out of place. The rim appeared oddly thick on one side, thinner on the other, as though the strike had been off-center by the slightest margin. Under magnification, the mystery deepened. The date showed faint doubling, the kind of ghostly repetition that hinted at a double die. The letters in United States of America, on the reverse, seemed to bulge subtly in certain areas, and the torch's lines were not as crisp as they should have been. There was also a tiny but unmistakable die chip tucked into the upper curve of the D in dime, a small mound of metal that did not belong. The realization sent a ripple of excitement through the collector. Modern error coins, especially those struck in vast quantities under tight quality control, were rare enough to be worth a closer look. But to find a coin that seemed to combine multiple anomalies, off-center strike, doubling, and a die chip, was the kind of discovery that could set off a chain of curiosity in the numismatic world. They knew better than to rush. Many coins with unusual features turn out to be the result of post-mint damage or common mechanical issues. But this felt different. Rather than immediately offering the coin for sale, the collector began the slow process of verification. They photographed the dime under different lighting angles, documenting the peculiarities. They compared it to other 2015 P. Roosevelt dimes in their collection and to high-resolution images from grading services. The differences were clear enough to suggest something more than random wear or damage. The next step was to bring it quietly to the attention of a trusted numismatic contact, someone known for their expertise in modern mint errors. The response came back quickly. This was worth further investigation. In the beginning, the coin's monetary value was uncertain. A few tentative offers came in, low figures, as some buyers remained unconvinced. But as more examples began to surface, each bearing similar characteristics, the pattern became undeniable. Reports came from collectors in different states, though curiously, many of the earliest finds appeared to have originated in the Mid-Atlantic region, close to the Philadelphia Mint itself. This geographical clustering suggested that the error coins had been distributed in a limited area before spreading through circulation. The market's response was gradual but steady. Early verified pieces sold for modest amounts, enough to attract attention, but not enough to cause a frenzy. Then, as word spread through online forums and coin shows, demand began to rise. By the second year of its recognition, prices for well-preserved examples were climbing into the low hundreds of dollars. High-grade, certified coins commanded even more, their rarity compounded by the difficulty of finding them without significant wear from circulation. Collectors studied the coin's physical traits in detail. The off-center strike, though slight, gave the rim an uneven appearance that was noticeable even to casual observers once pointed out. The doubling in the date and certain letters on the reverse suggested a hubbing error during die creation, the kind that leaves lasting marks on every coin struck from that die. The die chip in the D of dime became a hallmark feature, a tiny imperfection that seemed almost like a hidden signature from the mint's machinery. Each of these characteristics on its own might have been interesting, but their combination on a single coin elevated its status in the eyes of the numismatic community. Then came a twist that deepened the intrigue. A researcher examining dime marriage patterns, the study of how obverse and reverse dies were paired during production, discovered that the 2015 P error dimes with these traits all appear to share the same die pair. This meant that the error wasn't random or scattered across different dies, but rather the product of one specific pairing that likely saw only brief use before being retired. The short production span explained the limited number of known examples and added an extra layer of scarcity. If that die pair had been in service for only a few hours, the total number of coins struck might have been in the tens of thousands, or fewer, before normal production resumed. This revelation caused the market to shift again. Coins that had been selling for $150 suddenly found buyers willing to pay $300 or more, especially for uncirculated pieces. Speculators entered the fray, eager to secure examples before prices climbed further. Meanwhile, seasoned collectors continued to value the coin not just for its rarity, but for the story it told. A story of how even in an age of precision manufacturing, the human and mechanical elements of minting could still produce something unique. For the original collector, watching the coin's journey from curiosity to recognized variety was as satisfying as the find itself. They had resisted the urge to sell early, trusting their instincts that the coin's significance would grow with time. Now, as it appeared in numismatic articles, online databases, and even display cases at coin shows, they knew their patience had been rewarded. The dime had become a small but shining example of the unpredictable nature of the hobby. The 2015 P. Roosevelt dime error remains a reminder that rarity does not always depend on age or metal content. Sometimes it comes from a fleeting moment in the minting process, a moment when a die is slightly misaligned, when a hub leaves an extra impression, or when a speck of metal forms a chip that no one notices until the coins are in the public's hands. These imperfections, frozen in the design, turn an everyday coin into a piece of history, one that collectors will search for, debate over, and treasure for years to come.